The word hangs in this great hall, a shard of ice in the thick, suffocating air. Mate. It is a soundless howl that rips through the stone and silence, spoken not from the Alpha King's lips, but from the very core of his being. The scent of him, winter pine, ozone, and raw power, floods my senses, a suffocating wave that drowns out the smell of fear and burning torches. My heart, that foolish traitor in my chest, stammers and then lurches into a frantic, desperate rhythm that matches the beast before me. His silver eyes are locked on mine, glowing with a primal fire that sees past the diplomatic chains on my wrists, past my title as hostage, and strips me bare to the soul. In this moment, I am humiliation and I am danger. A spark cast into a hall filled with gunpowder. The inevitable is no longer coming. It is here, and it wears a crown. His wolf has claimed me, and now the man must decide my fate. A collective gasp ripples through the assembled council, a serpent's hiss of disbelief and outrage. Elder Lycoris, a she-wolf whose face is a roadmap of old scars and older grudges, takes a single, deliberate step forward. The jewels braided into her gray hair glitter like chips of ice. "My king," she rasps, her voice like stones grinding together. The bargain was for a hostage, a symbol of the Varys Pack's submission, not this. She gestures a clawed hand toward me, a flick of dismissal that makes my blood run cold with fury. She is the whelp of the Alpha who slaughtered our border patrol. Her blood is tainted with treason. The moon goddess would not curse this pack with such a union. The word curse echoes, picked up by the whispers that begin to snake through the chamber. They look at me not as a person, but as a blight, a sickness that has just infected their king, my father's daughter, a living effigy of the war he nearly started. The chains on my wrists suddenly feel heavier, colder, a physical manifestation of their hatred. I lift my chin, my own alpha blood refusing to let me cower, even as my insides twist into a knot of pure terror. Severin Kaler does not move. He remains on his dais, a figure carved from mountain granite and shadow. Yet the power rolling off him intensifies, a pressure that commands the very air to be still. His eyes, those burning silver furnaces, never leave my face. It is a terrifying intimacy, a private war waged in a room full of soldiers. He sees the defiance I force into my spine. He smells the fear clinging to my skin. I feel his gaze like a physical touch, tracing the line of my jaw, the frantic pulse in my throat. "The goddess does not make mistakes, Lycoris," he says, his voice a low, resonant growl that vibrates through the floor. "It is not a suggestion, it is a decree. Nor does she ask for the approval of her children." He rises from his throne. The movement is fluid, silent, the grace of a predator that knows its own devastating strength. The great hall, filled with 24 of the most powerful wolves on the continent, holds its breath. He descends the stone steps, each footfall a deliberate beat in a death march. He is not walking toward me. He is stalking, claiming territory with every step. The space between us shrinks, charged with an energy so thick I can taste it. Metal and lightning. My wolf, the wild and untamed part of me I have suppressed for years under my father's rigid rule, stirs in its sleep. It stretches, its senses awakening to the presence of its other half. It recognizes him. It wants him. The betrayal is so profound it feels like a physical tear within me. I am Thalindra Varys, my father's daughter, a political prisoner, but I am also a wolf, and my wolf knows its mate. Severin stops just before me. He is a mountain of a man, his shadow swallowing me whole. He reaches out, and for a heart-stopping second, I think he will strike me, end this farce before it can begin. Instead, his fingers, warm and calloused, brush against the cold iron of my manacles. A jolt, white-hot and electric, shoots up my arm. The contact is a brand. The mate bond, a dormant beast, awakens with a roar, flooding my veins with a dizzying rush of sensation. I feel a phantom echo of his strength, the crushing weight of his crown, the loneliness that surrounds him like a shroud. I gasp, stumbling back a step, but the chains hold me fast. His eyes soften for a fraction of a second, a flicker of raw shock. As if he felt it too, the sudden violent collision of our souls. Then the mask of the Alpha King slams back into place. "You question my claim?" he asked the room. His voice dangerously soft, but his hand remains near mine, his thumb stroking the frozen metal of the chain link. The gesture is possessive, protective, a threat to anyone who would dare challenge it. Lycoris snarls, her lips pulling back from yellowed teeth. "We question the wisdom of binding our pack to a traitor's line. She is a weapon your enemies have placed in your very throne room. To accept her is to invite the serpent into our den. The law is clear. A threat to the pack must be eliminated." "She is not a threat," Severin states, his gaze still fixed on me. "She is my mate, and she is your queen." The finality of the words shatters the remaining tension. Chaos erupts. Shouts of protest and outrage clash with the loyal roars of his personal guard, the Hounds of Kalor, who move to form a protective circle around the dais. Lycoris looks ready to lunge, her own wolf fighting for control. But Severin is faster. He moves with blinding speed, his hand finally closing around my wrist, manacle and all. He pulls me forward, breaking the line of my diplomatic imprisonment and yanking me against his side. The impact sends another shockwave through my body. I am pressed against hard muscle and leather, enveloped in his scent. It should feel like a cage. My mind screams that it is a cage, but my body, the treacherous vessel, sags against him in a moment of shocking relief. It feels like coming home after a lifetime in exile. "Enough!" His roar is the sound of an avalanche, a force of nature that silences every voice, quells every argument. The very torches on the walls seem to flicker and dim in deference. He holds me fast, a shield and a warden, all in one. "This council is over. Leave us." No one moves. The defiance in the air is palpable. Lycoris holds his gaze, a silent battle of wills between the old ways and the new king. Severin's eyes narrow, the silver bleeding to the edges until they are almost entirely luminous. A low, guttural growl rumbles in his chest, a vibration I feel in my own bones. "Now!" The command is laced with pure alpha power. It is not a request to be obeyed, but a compulsion that bypasses thought and reason. It demands submission. One by one, the council members lower their heads, their own wolves forced to yield. Lycoris is the last to break, her lips curled in a silent snarl of promise, before she turns and sweeps from the hall, her followers trailing in her wake. Soon, the great hall is empty, save for us and two of his personal guards standing sentinel by the massive oak doors. The sudden silence is heavier than the noise that came before it. All I can hear is the frantic beat of my own heart and the steady, powerful rhythm of his. He finally releases me, and I stumble back, the warmth of his body leaving a chill on my skin. I rub my wrist, the metal of the manacle a cold, hard reminder of what I am. A prisoner. "What have you done?" I whisper, the words tasting of ash. His expression is unreadable, his face once again the stoic mask of a king. "I have stated a fact. The consequences of that fact are yet to be seen." "Consequences?" I laugh, a bitter, broken sound. "Your elders want to execute me. My father sent me here as a peace offering, not a bride for his most hated enemy. You haven't just stated a fact, you have signed a declaration of war." "Your father will not declare war," Severin says with unnerving certainty. "Not when his only heir is in my protection." "Protection?" I hold up my chained wrists. "You call this protection? I am your hostage, your mate, your queen. I don't even know what I am anymore, except a pawn in a game I never agreed to play." He steps closer again, and I have to fight the instinct to retreat further. He studies my face, his silver eyes searching for something I don't understand. "You are the woman whose scent has haunted my dreams for a decade," he says, his voice losing its regal edge, becoming something rougher, more personal. "You are the other half of a soul I thought was lost to me, and you are in more danger now than you have ever been in your life." His honesty is a blow more stunning than any physical strike. He has felt this too, for years. The revelation leaves me breathless. All this time I had felt a strange pull toward the north, a restless yearning I could never name. I thought it was ambition, a desire for a life beyond my father's suffocating influence. It was him. It was always him. The elders will not be silenced by a single command, he continues, his gaze intense. Lycoris speaks for a powerful faction. They believe you are a weakness, a Varus spy sent to poison me from within. They will try to remove you. Then let them, I say, the words torn from a place of desperation. Send me back. Tell them the goddess was mistaken. Deny it. A muscle feathers in his jaw. A dark, dangerous light enters his eyes. Never. The word is a vow. I will not deny my mate. He reaches out and his fingers ghost over the iron cuff again. With a sharp, sudden twist, the sound of tortured metal groans through the hall. The chain link snaps, and the manacle falls from my wrist with a heavy clang on the stone floor. He does the same to the other, his strength terrifying and absolute. Freedom from the chains does not feel like freedom at all. It feels like I've merely exchanged one set of bonds for another, infinitely more complex and inescapable. They will challenge the claim, he says, his voice low. They will demand a trial. A trial for what? To prove the bond is real, to prove you are not a threat, and to prove that you accept me as your alpha and as your mate. He turns his back to me, walking slowly toward the massive hearth, the flames casting his silhouette in flickering gold and black. There is only one trial that satisfies all three conditions, a public consummation and marking. The air leaves my lungs in a rush. I stare at his broad back, at the effortless power in his stance, and a cold, horrifying dread washes over me. He isn't just talking about a political maneuver. He is talking about the most sacred, most intimate right our people have. A public ceremony, followed by a private, claiming that would forge a bond between us so deep it could never be broken, soul, body, and mind, forever. No, I breathe, the word catching in my throat. Absolutely not. He turns slowly, his face shadowed, his eyes gleaming in the firelight. The ruthless Alpha King is back, his brief moment of vulnerability gone as if it had never been. You mistake this for a choice, Thalindra, he says, his voice devoid of warmth. Lycoris and her followers will use any hesitation, any perceived division between us, as an excuse to put a blade in your back. They will see your refusal as proof of your treachery. He takes a step toward me. The ceremony will take place on the next full moon in 3 nights. 3 nights, 3 days to accept a fate that felt like a death sentence. And if I refuse, I challenge, my voice shaking but firm. He closes the distance between us until he is standing directly in front of me again. So close I have to crane my neck to meet his gaze. He leans down, his breath warm against my ear, sending a shiver down my spine that is equal parts terror and a dark, traitorous thrill. If you refuse, he murmurs, his voice a silken threat that wraps around my soul, I will not be able to protect you from them. And when they come for you, I will be forced to choose between my mate and my pack. Do not make me tear my kingdom apart, little wolf. He pulls back slightly, his silver eyes boring into mine, filled with a terrible possessive fire. Because I will. His words hang between us, a promise and a death sentence entwined. For a long moment, I can do nothing but stare at him, this king who would tear his world apart for a woman he doesn't know, for a bond he cannot deny. The firelight carves hollows under his high cheekbones, making him look less like a man and more like a deity of judgment, ancient and unforgiving. My defiance shatters, leaving behind the cold, brittle shards of terror. He is not bluffing. The absolute conviction in his silver eyes tells me he would burn everything to the ground before he would let me go or let me be killed. I am his. The thought is a brand, searing itself into my mind. Without another word, he turns and gestures for me to follow. My feet feel like lead, but my body obeys, trailing him out of the great hall through a smaller, private door behind the dais. The 2 hounds of Kylor fall into step behind us, their presence a silent, menacing weight. We move through cold, echoing stone corridors, their walls lined with faded tapestries depicting the bloody history of his lineage. Every snarling wolf woven into the fabric seems to turn its threadbare eyes on me, judging me, finding me wanting. The whispers follow us, slithering from the shadows of archways and alcoves. Servants and pack members, who had been lingering just out of sight, now press themselves against the walls to let us pass, their eyes full of a venomous curiosity. I hear the word Varys hiss like a curse. I see a kitchen maid make a sign with her hand to ward off evil as I pass. I am a plague walking through their home, a contamination in their bloodline. I force my spine to remain straight, my head held high, channeling every lesson my father ever taught me about showing no weakness to an enemy. The irony is that my enemies are now on all sides, and the one man who could protect me is also my captor. Severin seems oblivious to the hatred directed at me, or perhaps he is simply so accustomed to command that he expects it to be obeyed. He leads me up a winding staircase, the stone worn smooth in the center from centuries of use. We enter a wing of the keep that is warmer, the air thick with the scent of wood smoke, drying herbs, and his own pervasive scent of pine. This is his domain. He stops before a heavy, iron-banded door and pushes it open. "Your chambers," he announces, his voice flat. I step inside and my breath catches. It is a large circular room, clearly carved from one of the keep's towers. A fire roars in a stone hearth wide enough for a man to stand in. Rich furs, sable, wolf, and bear are draped over a massive bed and piled on thick carpets that cover the floor. It is a room fit for a queen, luxurious and opulent. It is also a prison. There is only one door, and the windows are narrow arrow slits set high in the stone walls, offering only a sliver of the moonlit sky. "It's a cage," I say, the words slipping out before I can stop them. Severin follows me in, closing the door behind him. The sound of the heavy bolt sliding home is deafening in the sudden quiet. The 2 guards remain outside. We are alone. "It is the safest room in the keep," he counters, his gaze sweeping the room as if searching for threats. "No one enters this wing without my permission." "Except for me," I point out, a bitter edge to my voice. "The prisoner." "You are not a prisoner, Thalindra." He says my name, and the sound of it on his tongue is both a caress and a claim. It sends a forbidden shiver through me. "You are my intended, my Luna. You will be treated as such." "By who? By the elders who want my head? By the servants who look at me like I'm a disease?" I wrap my arms around myself, a futile gesture against the chill that has nothing to do with the temperature of the room. "Your pack hates me." "They fear what they do not understand," he says, walking towards the fire. He braces a hand on the stone mantelpiece, staring down into the flames. The firelight plays over the hard lines of his face, softening them one moment, turning them into a harsh mask the next. They see only the daughter of their rival. They do not yet see their queen. "I am not your queen." The protest is torn from my throat, raw and desperate. "I am a hostage, a peace treaty. That is all I have ever been." He turns his head slowly, his silver eyes pinning me in place. "Is that what your father told you? That your only worth was as a bargaining chip?" There is a dangerous undercurrent in his voice, a low growl of contempt that isn't directed at me. I falter, the truth of his words striking a nerve I thought was long dead. My father, Alpha Varys, had always treated me as an asset, a daughter to be married off for an alliance, or in this case, handed over to stave off a war. Love had never been part of the equation. Duty, blood, legacy, those were the words that had shaped my world. "My father is an alpha," I say, my voice clipped. "He does what is necessary for his pack." "And what of his daughter?" Severin asks, taking a step away from the fire, toward me. "Did he ever consider what was necessary for you?" His question unravels something deep inside me. No one had ever asked that before. My needs, my wants, were always secondary to the needs of the pack. To hear the question spoken aloud, by him of all people, is both unsettling and strangely liberating. That doesn't matter, I deflect, unable to face the hollow ache his words expose. We are talking about this ceremony. It's barbaric, a public spectacle. It is tradition, he corrects, his voice losing its personal edge and becoming regal once more. It is how our people have forged alliances for 1,000 years. The bond must be witnessed. The marking must be seen. It shows the pack that the union is real, that our two halves are stronger than the sum of their parts. It is a symbol of strength and unity. It is a symbol of my complete and utter surrender to you, I retort, my anger flaring to mask the vulnerability he has uncovered. You would have me parade my submission before the very wolves who want to kill me. I would have you stand beside me and show them that you are not a weakness they can exploit, but a power they must respect. He is closer now, his presence filling the room, consuming all the air. They need to see that you accept the bond, that you accept me. If they sense any hesitation, Lycoris will use it. She will claim you are using dark magic to bewitch me, that the bond is false. She will demand your death to free me, and half the pack will support her. He stops just a foot away from me. The heat from his body reaches out, a tangible force. My wolf, that traitorous beast within, yearns to close the distance, to press against him, to seek the comfort of its mate. I fight it with every ounce of my will. There is another way, I insist, my voice dropping to a desperate plea. Challenge her. As alpha, your word is law. A look of something akin to weariness passes over his features. Lycoris is not just any elder. She was my father's most trusted advisor. Her bloodline is one of the oldest in the north. To challenge her directly on a matter of sacred law would fracture the pack. Wolves would be forced to choose sides. Blood would be shed in the streets. Is that the kind of kingdom you wish to be queen of? One born from civil war? He is right. I know he is right. An alpha's strength is not just in his dominance, but in his ability to hold his pack together. He is offering me the only path that ensures both my survival and the stability of his kingdom. It is a cruel, impossible logic. To save his people, he must sacrifice my freedom. To save my life, I must sacrifice my entire identity. My shoulders slump. The fight drains out of me, replaced by a cold, heavy resignation. I have no choice, do I? His expression softens, the hard lines around his eyes easing. He sees my surrender, but there is no triumph in his gaze, only a deep, profound sorrow. I wish there were another way, for both our sakes. He reaches out, his hand hovering in the air between us for a moment before he gently touches my cheek. His calloused thumb brushes away a tear I didn't even realize had fallen. The contact is a spark on dry tinder. The bond flares to life, a current of pure energy that flashes between us. For a dizzying second, I feel what he feels, the crushing weight of his crown, the profound loneliness of his position, and a fierce, terrifying protectiveness directed entirely at me. It's overwhelming. I gasp and pull back, breaking the contact, my heart hammering against my ribs. He drops his hand, his jaw tight. I will have food and wine sent to you, he says, his voice rough. And fresh clothes. Rest. We will speak again in the morning. He turns and leaves without another word. The bolt slides open and then slams shut again, sealing me inside my gilded cage. The moment he is gone, the strength I had been clinging to dissolves. I sink onto the edge of the massive bed, burying my face in my hands. My wolf paces restlessly within me, whining at the loss of his presence, while my human mind screams in protest. I am caught between two warring halves of myself, one that recognizes its mate, and another that recognizes its jailer. A short time later, a quiet knock precedes the door opening. Two young she-wolves enter, their heads bowed, their eyes fixed on the floor. One carries a tray laden with roasted meat, bread, and a silver flagon of wine. The other carries a simple woolen tunic and leggings. They move with a fearful efficiency, placing the items on a small table near the fire and laying the clothes on the bed without once looking at me. Their fear is a palpable thing, a scent in the air as strong as the roasting meat. They see me as the Alpha King's property, a dangerous and unpredictable creature. "Thank you," I say softly, trying to sound unthreatening. They both flinch as if I had snarled at them. They murmur something unintelligible and practically flee the room, the door bolting shut behind them once more. I am alone again with my thoughts and the feast I have no appetite for. But my father taught me another lesson. Never refuse food in an enemy's territory. It is a sign of weakness, and you will need your strength. I force myself to move to the table. The smell of the food is rich, but something else lies beneath it. Something sharp and vaguely bitter. I pause, my hand hovering over the bread. My senses, heightened by the turmoil of the day and the proximity of my mate, are screaming a silent warning. I lean closer to the flagon of wine, inhaling deeply. Under the sweet, fruity aroma of the wine, there is another scent. It is faint, almost undetectable, but my wolf knows it instantly. Wolfsbane. Not enough to kill a shifter outright, but enough to cause agonizing sickness, to weaken the body and spirit, to make one vulnerable. My blood runs cold. It is not an overt attack with a blade, but something far more insidious. A coward's weapon, a test, or an execution disguised as hospitality. Lycoris. It had to be. She was testing the king's resolve and my own awareness. If I fell ill, she could claim it was a Varys weakness, proof that my bloodline was impure and unfit to join with the king's. If I died, well, that would solve all her problems. I look from the poisoned wine to the locked door. Severin was right. They were already trying to remove me. The threat was not just in the council hall. It had followed me into the heart of the king's private domain. Someone had bypassed his authority, bribed or threatened the servants, and delivered a promise of death to my chambers. Treason. The scent of it was thick in the air, more potent than the poison in the cup. I am not safe here. I am a target. And the only shield I have is the very man who put the target on my back. I stare at the flagon, a dark realization dawning. This changes everything. This is no longer just about my freedom. This is about survival. A cold, hard resolve settles in my bones, displacing the fear. They think I am a weak, pampered hostage, a sacrificial lamb to be disposed of. They are about to learn that the daughter of Alpha Varys is no one's victim. I will not drink the wine. I will not show them my fear, and I will not let them win. I will survive this, if only to spite them all. My hand closes around the silver flagon. A plan, desperate and dangerous, begins to form in my mind. Severin said the ceremony was to show them I accept him. Perhaps there was a way to use their own traditions against them, to turn this public spectacle into a declaration of my own. Not as a submissive mate, but as a survivor, as a queen. But first, I had to survive the night. I look at the wine, then back at the door, and a single chilling thought solidifies. The traitor is closer than anyone thinks. The silver flagon is cold in my hands, a vessel of chilling purpose. For a long, silent moment, I do nothing but stare at the ornate carvings on its surface, snarling wolves chasing a stag through an eternal metallic forest. A hunt. That's what this is, and I am the prey. Fear is a useless luxury, a weakness my father would have beaten out of me. It is replaced by a cold, clear anger that sharpens my senses and stills the trembling in my fingers. They will not have me. I will not die a coward's death in a locked room. Clutching the flagon, I stride to the door and pound my fist against the heavy oak. The sound is an ugly, jarring thud in the quiet wing. "Guards!" I shout, my voice stronger than I expected. There's a muffled scrape of boots on stone from the other side. "The Alpha King ordered you are not to be disturbed, my lady," a gruff voice replies. The title, my lady, is a bitter irony, a polite term for a prisoner. "The Alpha King will be a great deal more than disturbed if you do not open this door. It is a matter of treason. Open it now, or he will have your hides for failing to report it." I lace my voice with the same imperious command my father used. a tone that expects to be obeyed. A moment of hesitation, then the sound of the heavy bolt being drawn back. The door groans open a few inches, and the face of one of the hounds of Kalor peers in, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. He is massive, with a thick gray-streaked beard and a scar that splits his left eyebrow. I hold up the flagon. "Take me to the king, immediately." His eyes flick from my face to the flagon and back again. He sees the resolve in my expression and must decide that angering me is a lesser risk than angering his alpha. He gives a curt nod, opening the door fully. "This way." He and his partner flank me, their steps silent on the stone as they lead me not back the way we came, but deeper into the king's domain. The air grows cooler, laced with the scent of steel, oil, and old leather. We descend a short flight of stairs into a chamber that is part armory, part training room. Weapon racks line the walls, holding swords and axes that gleam in the torchlight. In the center of the room, stripped to his waist, is Sevron. He moves with lethal grace, a massive broadsword cutting silent, deadly arcs through the air. Sweat glistens on the corded muscles of his back and shoulders, each movement a testament to a lifetime of brutal discipline. The raw, physical power of him is breathtaking. He is not a king playing at being a warrior. He is a predator in his natural element. He does not notice us at first, lost in the lethal rhythm of the sword. The sight of him, so unguarded and primal, sends a jolt straight through me, and the mate bond sings a low, appreciative hum in my blood. The headguard clears his throat. "My king." Severin stops mid-swing, the massive sword halting as if it were an extension of his own arm. He turns, his silver eyes flashing with annoyance at the interruption. The annoyance vanishes the moment he sees me. A dozen conflicting emotions cross his face: surprise, concern, and a flicker of something possessive and dark. "What is this?" he demands, his voice a low growl. His eyes rake over me, checking for injury. "I gave orders you were not to be disturbed." "She insisted, my king," the guard says, bowing his head. "She spoke of treason." Sevron's eyes narrow, locking onto mine. He lays the broadsword carefully on a rack and picks up a cloth, wiping the sweat from his brow as he stalks toward me. The intensity of his approach makes me feel like a mouse facing a wolf. I force myself to stand my ground. "Explain," he commands, stopping a few feet away. Without a word, I hold out the silver flagon. "Your hospitality, Tatai," I say, my voice level. He takes it from me, his fingers brushing mine. The contact is a brand, a spark of heat that leaps up my arm. He frowns, turning the flagon over in his large hands. "I don't understand." "Smell it," I urge, my voice dropping. "Not the wine. Smell what's beneath it." His eyes hold mine for a second longer before he lifts the flagon to his face, his nostrils flaring slightly. For a moment, he is perfectly still. Then the change happens. It is terrifying to behold. The air in the room drops 10 degrees. A low guttural snarl rips from his chest, a sound of pure, unrestrained fury that is not entirely human. The veins on his neck and arms stand out, and his silver eyes begin to glow with a menacing inner light. The alpha is fully present, raw and untamed. "Wolfsbane," he snarls, the word a promise of death. He crushes the solid silver flagon in his fist, as if it were parchment, the poisoned wine spilling onto the stone floor with a dark splash. The guards behind me flinch, instinctively lowering their heads in submission to the alpha's rage. His incandescent gaze snaps back to me. He crosses the distance between us in a single stride, his hands landing on my shoulders, gripping me with a strength that should be painful but isn't. His thumbs trace the line of my collarbones, his touch a strange mix of fury and frantic concern. "Did you drink any?" he demands, his voice a ragged edge of panic. "Thalindra, tell me!" "No," I whisper, shaken by the sheer violence of his reaction. This is not the cold, calculating king from the Great Hall. This is the beast that lives beneath his skin, and all its protective rage is focused on me. "I smelled it first." A shudder of relief runs through his powerful frame. He pulls me closer, one hand sliding from my shoulder to the back of my neck, his fingers tangling in my hair. His forehead comes to rest against mine. I can feel the frantic pounding of his heart. Or maybe it's my own. Good, he breathes, the word a raw, guttural sound against my skin. That's good. The bond between us flares, no longer a spark but a raging inferno. I am drowning in his emotions. The murderous rage at those who would harm me, the stark, bone-deep terror of what could have happened, and beneath it all, a fierce, possessive relief that I am safe. I feel his strength pouring into me, chasing away the last of my own fear. My hands come up to rest on his bare chest, my fingers spreading over the hot, slick skin. It's an instinctive gesture, meant to soothe, to steady, to claim. The moment stretches, intimate and raw. We are no longer king and hostage, but just a male and a female, a wolf and his mate, bound by a violent, protective instinct that defies politics and blood feuds. He smells of sweat, steel, and pine, and my traitorous wolf wants to bury its face in his neck and never leave. He pulls back slowly, his hand still framing my face. The glowing fury in his eyes has not lessened, but it is now controlled, honed to a razor's edge. "Kaelin," he roars, the head guard snaps to attention. "Bring me the servants who attended her, now, and seal this wing. No one gets in or out without my direct command." "Yes, my king," Kaelin says, and is gone in an instant. Sevron's gaze returns to me, his thumbs stroking my cheeks. "You were clever," he says, his voice low and intense. "And brave. You should have been terrified." I was, I admit, the confession slipping out. But my father taught me anger is a better weapon than fear. A flicker of something, respect perhaps, crosses his face. "Your father taught you well. In this, at least." He releases me, but the warmth of his hands lingers on my skin. He turns away, pacing the length of the room like a caged panther. To do this here, in my own chambers. The audacity, the sheer arrogance. He is speaking to himself now, his mind working through the implications. This wasn't a random act. It was a message, a challenge to my authority. "Lycris." "You think she did this herself?" I ask. "No," he scoffs. "Her hands would be clean, but she gave the order, or she fostered the dissent that allowed someone else to feel bold enough to act. She has turned my own pack against their queen before she is even crowned." The doors to the training room burst open, and Kaelin returns, shoving the two young she-wolves into the room. They collapse on the floor, weeping and shaking with terror. They are barely more than girls. Severin rounds on them, his shadow swallowing them whole. The alpha power rolling off him is a physical force, pressing down on them, suffocating them. "Who gave you the wine?" he demands, his voice deathly quiet. The girls can't even speak. They are so paralyzed by fear. One of them points a trembling finger at the other. "She did," the first one stammers. "Lyra, she brought the flagon from the kitchens." All eyes turn to the girl named Lyra. She is pale as a ghost, her eyes wide with a terror that goes beyond facing an angry alpha. It's the terror of someone who knows she is already dead. "Who gave it to you, Lyra?" Severin presses, his voice dangerously soft. I don't know," she sobs, curling into a ball on the floor. "A man. In the kitchens. His face was in shadow. He wore the robes of an elder's acolyte. He told me my family on the western farms would be safe if I did as I was told. He said it was just a sleeping draught to calm the foreign she-wolf's nerves. A lie. A convenient lie that protects the true culprit. Severin knows it, and I know it. This girl is a pawn, her family held hostage just as I was. Severin's jaw clenches. His rage is a living thing in the room, but his voice remains controlled. He knows terror will get him nowhere. "Look at me," he commands. Lyra flinches but forces her gaze upward. His scent, his voice, anything you can remember. He smelled of old parchment," she whispers, her eyes darting around wildly. And something else. Bitter herbs. And his voice, it was dry like dust. It is almost nothing. A ghost. A phantom who threatened a servant girl and vanished. Severin turns his back on them, a muscle working in his jaw. He knows this trail leads nowhere, for now. Take them to the cells, he orders Kaylin. Keep them separated, and keep them alive. They are the only lead we have. Kaylin hauls the weeping girls to their feet and drags them from the room. The silence they leave behind is heavy and grim. They will be killed before they can talk, I say. The certainty of it settling like a stone in my stomach. Whoever is behind this will not leave loose ends. I know, Severin says, his voice grim. He runs a hand through his dark hair. But it buys us time, and it shows the conspirators that I am aware of their game. He turns to me, his expression unreadable. You are not safe in those chambers, not alone. My heart gives a nervous flutter. Where will I go? You will stay with me. It is not a suggestion. You will sleep in my chambers. You will not leave my side until this threat is neutralized. No one would dare try to harm you with me as your shadow. The proposition is both terrifying and tantalizing. To be that close to him, to the raw power of the mate bond, would be a constant battle for control. But the alternative? To be left alone, a target in the dark? There was no choice. All right, I agree, my voice barely a whisper. He gives a curt nod, his focus already shifting back to the larger political game. He moves to a large wooden chest in the corner of the room and lifts the heavy lid. He pulls out a long black-handled dagger in a worn leather sheath. He holds it out to me. My mother gave this to me when I was a boy, he says, his voice softer. It is Valyrian steel, light but unbreakable. It has saved my life more than once. He presses it into my hand. Keep it with you, always. Learn the feel of it. It is a poor substitute for a true guard, but it is better than nothing. The dagger is perfectly balanced, the steel cool against my skin. It is a gift of immense trust. He is arming me. He is treating me not as a prisoner, but as a partner, an ally. It is a more intimate gesture than any kiss could ever be. Thank you, I say, my voice thick with an emotion I can't name. As I slide the dagger into the waist of my tunic, the doors to the armory swing open again. This time, it is not a guard. Elder Lycra stands there, her hands clasped before her, her expression one of serene, grandmotherly concern. My blood runs cold. My king, she says, her voice smooth as polished stone. I heard a disturbance. I came to see if all was well. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, flick to me, then to the crushed silver flagon on the floor. A flicker of something, surprise, disappointment, crosses her face before it is masked. All is well, Lycoris, Severin says, his voice like ice. He moves to stand slightly in front of me, a subtle, protective gesture. A minor disciplinary issue. I see, she says, her gaze lingering on me. There is no warmth in it, only a cold reptilian assessment. She looks at me as if I am a particularly resilient insect she had expected to find crushed underfoot. Then I am glad to hear it. It would be a tragedy if our guest were to come to any harm before the ceremony. It would send a terrible message to her father. It is a perfectly veiled threat. She turns her cold eyes back to me. You are stronger than you look, child. The Varys line has always been surprisingly durable. Then she adds, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, a sound meant to chill the soul. But some bloodlines carry a heavy price. The moon remembers the debts that men forget. Be careful your own does not come due to be collected. With a final thin smile, she gives a slight bow and retreats, vanishing into the corridor as silently as she appeared. Her final words echo in the sudden silence, a cryptic and ominous prophecy that hints at a darkness far older and deeper than felt simple pack rivalry. The scent of treason was just the beginning. Now the air was thick with the stench of something else entirely, a curse. Lycoris's parting words cling to the air long after she is gone, a venomous vapor that chills the soul. The moon remembers the debts that men forget. It is not a thread of pack politics, but something far older, laced with the bitter scent of superstition and dark magic. I feel the weight of Severin's mother's dagger at my waist, a cold, solid reassurance in a world that has suddenly dissolved into shadows and whispers. The attempt on my life was a straightforward danger I could understand. This feels like a net woven from moonlight and lies, closing in around me. Severin remained silent for a long moment, his silver eyes fixed on the empty archway where the elder had stood. The rage that had turned him into a primal force has receded, replaced by a cold, calculating stillness that is somehow more menacing. He is a king again, weighing threats on a scale I cannot see. "Come," he says, his voice flat and hard. He turns, not waiting for my reply, and I have no choice but to follow. He leads me from the armory, up another staircase that winds into the very heart of the keep. The guards fall in behind us, their presence a constant, heavy shadow. We pass no one. He has locked down his entire territory. We arrive at a set of towering doors carved from ancient night-dark wood, bound in black iron. Severin pushes them open and ushers me inside. His chambers are nothing like the gilded cage he first gave me. This is the den of a wolf, not the bedroom of a king. The room is vast and Spartan, dominated by a massive stone hearth where a fire burns low, casting dancing shadows across the walls. A huge bed covered in dark wolf pelts sits on a raised platform against the far wall. There are no paintings, no tapestries, only maps of the northern territories pinned to the walls with wicked-looking daggers. The air smells of him, pine and cold stone, and something uniquely his, the scent of undisputed power. A single large window, unadorned with curtains, offers a breathtaking, terrifying view of the snow-dusted mountains gleaming under the full moon's stark light. He closes the doors and the bolt slides home with a sound of utter finality. The guards remain outside. Again we are alone, but this time, the space feels charged with a different kind of tension. This is his sanctuary, his place of rest, and I am an intruder in it. I instinctively walk towards the fire, holding my hands out to the phantom warmth, needing something solid to focus on. My mind is a whirlwind of poison, daggers, and cryptic warnings. What did she mean? Severin's voice comes from behind me, low and demanding. He has not moved from the door. Her words, about a debt, about your bloodline. I shake my head, not turning to face him. I don't know, nursery stories, old wives' tales to frighten children. Lycoris does not speak in wives' tales, he says, and I hear him move, his soft booted footsteps closing the distance between us. She is the keeper of our pack's oldest lore. Every word she speaks is deliberate. What stories? He is standing behind me now. I can feel the heat of his body, a furnace against the chill of my fear. The mate bond hums, a low thrum of awareness that makes the fine hairs on my arms stand up. It wants me to turn, to lean back into him, to seek his strength. I resist. They were nothing, I insist, my voice tight. Just rhymes my nursemaid used to sing. About the sins of the fathers and how the moon demands its due. It sounds foolish even to my own ears. Tell me, he commands. There is no room for refusal in his tone. I take a shaky breath, the memories surfacing from the deep well of childhood, hazy and indistinct. Something about a Varus Alpha, long ago. He made a bargain in a time of great famine, a pact to save the pack from starvation. What was the pact? Severin's voice is sharp, intense. I don't remember the details, only the price. I turn to face him then, my eyes meeting his. In the flickering firelight, his silver irises seemed to pulse with a light of their own. The lullaby said the price was blood. A daughter promised to the shadows, a debt to be paid under a silver moon. The silence that follows is profound. Severin stares at me, his expression unreadable, but I can see the thoughts turning behind his eyes. He is connecting the whispers of a forgotten nursery rhyme to the political venom of his most powerful elder. A debt to be paid under a silver moon, he repeats softly, his gaze dropping from my eyes to my throat, as if he could see the Varys' blood pulsing there. He looks at me now not just as a rival's daughter, or even as his mate, but as something else. A sacrifice, an unknown quantity in a deadly equation. It's a children's story, P'all, I say again, more to convince myself than him. Is it? He takes another step, closing the final space between us. He lifts a hand, and for a heart-stopping second, I think he will touch me again. Instead, he gestures to the massive bed. You will sleep there, I will take the furs by the fire. I stare at him, shocked. I can take the floor. No, he says the word absolute. You are the future Luna of this pack. You will not sleep on the floor of my chambers like a servant. You will take the bed. He turns away, already moving to a large wooden chest at the foot of the bed. There is a bathing chamber through that door. You will find clothes. We will speak no more of this tonight. Your mind is weary, and mine is ill-suited for diplomacy at the moment. The dismissal is clear, the conversation is over, but the unspoken truth hangs in the air. He needs to think, to process this new supernatural threat, and he needs to do it alone. Numbly, I walk to the bathing chamber. It is a small stone room where hot water, smelling of sulfur, steams from a natural spring into a deep, rock-hewn pool. The simple luxury of it feels absurd after the events of the evening. I strip off my travel-stained clothes, leaving his mother's dagger on a dry ledge where I can see it. The hot water is a blessed relief, soaking the tension from my muscles, but it cannot touch the cold knot of fear in my stomach. As I bathe, my mind races. My father, did he know? Did he send me here knowing about this supposed debt, this curse? Was I not a peace offering, but a payment? The thought is a serpent coiling in my gut. When I emerge, wrapped in a thick linen towel, Severin is nowhere to be seen. Simple, clean clothes, a soft tunic and leggings, much like the ones I was given before, are laid out for me on the bed. A jug of clean water and a single cup are on the nightstand. There is no wine. The gesture is both a comfort and a stark reminder. I dress quickly and slip under the heavy weight of the wolf pelts. The bed is huge, big enough for 4 people, and it smells of him. The scent is everywhere, in the furs, in the pillows, in the very air of the room. It is intoxicating and deeply unsettling. It feels like I am being claimed by the space itself. I hear the chamber door open and close softly. Severin returns. He has put a shirt on, but it does little to hide the sheer power of his frame. He doesn't look at me, but moves to the hearth, adding another log to the fire. Then, as promised, he pulls several thick furs from the chest and lays them on the stone floor. He settles down with his back against the hearth, facing the door. A sentinel, a guard, my personal jailer. Sleep should be impossible. I am in the bed of my enemy, my mate, with assassins in the shadows and a possible curse hanging over my head. Yet, as the minutes tick by, a strange sense of security steals over me. The sound of his steady breathing, the sight of his powerful silhouette guarding the only entrance, the knowledge that the most dangerous thing in the castle is currently lying on the floor to protect me. It soothes the frantic, terrified animal inside me. My wolf recognizes the truth of the situation. We are safe. For the first time since I arrived, I feel truly, completely safe. And that thought is more terrifying than any poison. My last waking vision is of his shadow, cast long and dark by the firelight, a silent protector in the heart of the storm. I wake to a hand clamped over my mouth and the cold kiss of steel at my throat. Panic, stark and absolute, rips through me. My eyes fly open. In the pre-dawn gloom, a figure cloaked in black leans over me, one hand suffocating me, the other holding a thin, sharp blade to my pulse. My mind screams. I buck, trying to throw him off, but he is heavy and strong. The blade presses harder. Not a sound, Varys. A dry, dusty voice hisses in my ear. The man from the kitchens, the acolyte. The king sleeps soundly. He won't wake until your heart has stopped. My eyes dart frantically towards the hearth. The furs where Severin lay are empty. A trap. He left me. He left me alone, and they came for me. The betrayal is a pain sharper than the knife. My fingers scrabble under the furs, searching for a weapon, for anything. My hand closes around the hilt of the dagger Severin gave me. I had brought it to bed with me, a silent comfort in the dark. The assassin leans in, his foul breath on my cheek. Elder Lycris sends her regrets. That's all I need. My rage ignites, burning away the panic. I ram my knee up into his groin with all my strength. He grunts, his body arching in pain. The hand over my mouth loosens for a fraction of a second. It's enough, I scream. It's not a plea for help, but a raw, furious war cry. At the same instant, I bring the Valyrian steel dagger up in a desperate arc, plunging it into the soft flesh of his thigh. He howls in agony, stumbling back, pulling the knife from my throat. I scramble away from him across the massive bed, breathing in ragged, painful gasps. The chamber door explodes inward, ripped from its iron hinges. Severin is there, a storm of fury made flesh. He is no longer a king. He is a beast, his eyes glowing with silver light, his lips pulled back from his teeth in a deadly snarl. He takes in the scene in an instant, me alive and breathing. The cloaked assassin clutching his bleeding leg. The assassin knows he is dead. He makes a fatal mistake, turning his back on the Alpha to lunge for the window. He never makes it. Severin crosses the room in a blur of motion, a shadow that moves too fast for the human eye to follow. He slams into the assassin, and the sound of the impact is the sickening crunch of bone and sinew. They crash against the far wall, and Severin's hand closes around the man's throat, lifting him clear off the floor. "Who sent you?" Severin's voice is a low, guttural growl, barely recognizable as human. The assassin chokes, his legs kicking uselessly. The debt must be paid, he gags, his eyes wide with terror and a fanatic's conviction. Wrong answer, Severin snarls. There is a final sharp crack, and the assassin's body goes limp. Severin holds him there for a moment longer before dropping him to the floor like a sack of refuse. He turns to me, the feral rage in his eyes slowly receding as he sees that I am truly unharmed. He stalks to the bed, his gaze sweeping over me, searching for injuries. His eyes land on the thin red line on my throat where the blade had been. A low growl rumbles in his chest. I heard the door, Tsar, he says, his voice rough with the aftermath of his rage. The bar was being lifted from the outside. I went to the secondary entrance to flank them. He had not abandoned me. He had been hunting. He reaches out, his fingers gently tracing the scratch on my neck. The touch is feather light, but it sends a tremor through my entire body. He hurt you. It's nothing, I whisper, my voice hoarse. It is everything, he counters, his eyes blazing. He looks down at the dead man on the floor. He mentioned the debt. He looks back at me, a dawning horror in his eyes. This is not just politics. It's a cult. She has fanatics willing to die for this prophecy. He turns from me and strides to a section of the wall near the hearth. He presses a stone, and a hidden panel clicks open, revealing a small, dark passageway. The old ways are my enemy's weapon, he says, his voice grim. So we will use them as ours. He gestures for me to follow. There is only one place in this keep that holds the truth of such things. The archives. He leads me into the dark, musty-smelling passage. He pulls a torch from a sconce, the flame casting our shadows long and distorted against the tight stone walls. We move in silence, my mind still reeling from the attack, my hand clutching the bloody hilt of the dagger. The passage ends at a small, unassuming door. Severin opens it, and we step out into a vast circular chamber. It is a library, but grander than any I have ever seen. Shelves packed with scrolls and leather-bound tomes stretch up into the darkness, far higher than any ladder could reach. The air is thick with the scent of ancient parchment and dust. The collected history of the northern pacts, Severon says, his voice a low echo in the cavernous space. If this debt is real, the details of the pact will be here. He leads me to a massive stone table in the center of the room, lighting several thick candles that cast a pool of wavering golden light. "What was the lullaby?" he asks, his eyes intense. "Every word you can remember." I close my eyes, forcing my mind back through the years to the soft voice of my nursemaid. "Black winter, bone-thin wolf," I begin, the words coming slowly at first, then faster. "Sunken eyes and starving mouth, the alpha cried to the cold, dark moon for a curse to turn to the south." I pause, the next lines coming in a rush. "A bargain struck, a promise made, a life for a field of grain, but the silver price was not yet paid, a debt to be washed in rain. When the Silver King finds the shadow heir, with a mark of the fallen star, her blood will settle the old despair and mend a forgotten scar." Severan's face is a mask of concentration. "A mark of the fallen star," he murmurs. He turns to the shelves, his eyes scanning the ancient bindings. He seems to know exactly what he is looking for. He pulls down a massive iron-bound book, so old the leather is cracked and faded. He lays it on the table, blowing a cloud of dust from its cover. The title is written in a long-forgotten runic script. "The Book of Debts," he translates, his voice grim. He opens it, the ancient pages crackling in protest. He flips through brittle parchment, his finger tracing lines of faded ink. He stops, his body going rigid. "Here," he breathes. I lean over his shoulder, my eyes trying to decipher the elegant, archaic script. What does it say? "An Alpha Varus during the long winter made a pact with a moon-touched witch of the whispering peaks," he reads, his voice low and tight with tension. He sacrificed his own life force to end the famine that was destroying his people. In return, he pledged the life of a future daughter of his line, one born under the blood moon with the starfall birthmark on her shoulder. She was to be a sacrifice to restore the balance he had broken. He looks at me, his eyes wide with a terrible understanding. "It was a blood sacrifice, Thalindra. They don't want to kill you because you're a Varus. They want to offer you on an altar. The world tilts on its axis. A cult. A sacrifice. A debt that had been waiting for generations. My life was not a political chip. It was the final payment on an ancient supernatural loan. But I don't have a mark like that," I say, a desperate denial rising in my throat. "Are you sure?" Severon asks, his voice soft, insistent. "A birthmark on your shoulder." I shake my head, but a cold dread is beginning to dawn. There was a mark, a small, strange cluster of pale freckles on my left shoulder blade. I had always ignored it. It was nothing. Severon continues reading, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "The prophecy states that the daughter's blood alone is not enough. The debt can only be cleansed when she is willingly claimed and marked by an alpha in whose veins runs the silver blood of the first wolf. An alpha whose eyes mirror the silver moon itself." His voice trails off. He lifts his gaze from the book, his luminous silver eyes locking with mine. The air crackles. It was never just about me. The prophecy requires him too. It requires our union, the mating bond, the public marking. It wasn't a political solution. It was the key to fulfilling a dark and terrible destiny. As the full weight of his words crashes down on me, a strange burning heat spreads across my left shoulder blade. It's a phantom itch that quickly turns into a searing fire. I gasp, stumbling back from the table, my hand flying to my shoulder. "Thalindra!" Severin is at my side in an instant, his hands gripping my arms, his face etched with alarm. "What is it?" "My shoulder," I gasp, the pain intensifying. "It's burning." With gentle but firm hands, he pulls the collar of my tunic aside, exposing my shoulder to the flickering candlelight. I twist my head, trying to see. In the dim light of the ancient library, The pale cluster of freckles I had borne my entire life is no longer pale. It is glowing, each tiny mark shining with a soft, ethereal silver light, forming a constellation I've never seen before. A fallen star, the mark of the sacrifice. It was not a birthmark. It was a brand, waiting for the prophecy to awaken it. The silver light pulsing from my shoulder is a beacon in the dusty dark of the archives, a cold fire that burns through my tunic and sears my skin. It's the light of a dying star, a brand of fate I never knew I carried. The truth of it, the prophecy, the sacrifice, the debt, crashes down on me, a physical weight that steals the air from my lungs. I am not a hostage, not a mate, not a queen. I am a payment, a life promised to the shadows centuries before I was born. My entire existence has been a lie, a prelude to a bloody conclusion written in a forgotten book. Sevron's hands are still on my arms, his grip the only thing keeping me upright. I can feel the tremors that run through his powerful frame as he stares at the glowing mark. The Alpha King, the wolf who bows to no one, is shaken. He is seeing the same truth I am, that the primal call of the mate bond, the one thing in our world that is supposed to be pure and fated, might be nothing more than a lure, a mechanism of the curse, designed to draw us together to fulfill its terrible design. It's real, he says, his voice a raw whisper. He is not speaking to me, but to the ghosts of this ancient place, to the weight of a history he is only now beginning to comprehend. He releases one of my arms and gently, almost reverently, traces the outline of the glowing constellation on my shoulder. His touch is not a caress, but an assessment, the touch of a scholar examining an artifact. A current of energy, cold and electric, arcs between his fingertips and my skin, and the silver light of the mark flares brightly, painfully, before subsiding to a steady glow. I wrench away from him, stumbling back toward the shelves, my hand clamped over my shoulder as if I could hide the damning evidence. No, I say, the word a ragged denial. It's a trick. Dark magic. Lycris, she could have done this. This is not Lycris's magic, Severin says, his voice heavy with a terrible certainty. He gestures to the ancient tome on the table. This is older than her, older than my father. This is a pact written in blood and shadow, and it has been waiting for you. His words are meant to be a statement of fact, but they land like a sentence. Waiting for me. The assassin's dying words echo in my mind. The debt must be paid. They don't just want me dead. They want to sacrifice me. What do they mean to do, I ask, my voice trembling. The book. What does it say is the price? Sevron's gaze is bleak. To restore the balance, to offer the life of the star-marked daughter on the altar of the moonstone during the first blood moon after she is claimed. His eyes meet mine, and the unspoken horror passes between us. The blood moon, a rare lunar event, a harbinger of great change and great bloodshed. There is one in 2 nights. 2 nights. The ceremony, the consummation and marking, the very act he said was necessary to save my life, is the final key that unlocks the door to my execution. The irony is so cruel, so absolute, it borders on madness. To accept him is to sign my own death warrant. To refuse him is to be cut down by his fanatics. Every path leads to a grave. A bitter, hysterical laugh escapes my lips. So this is my choice? To be stabbed in my bed by your fanatics? Or to be sacrificed on an altar by them 2 days later? Your protection is a beautifully crafted death trap, Your Majesty. The accusation hits him like a physical blow. The stoic mask of the king cracks, revealing a flash of raw, agonizing conflict. He takes a step towards me, his hands held up in a placating gesture. The Lindra I did not know. Didn't you? I counter, my voice rising, sharp with betrayal and despair. Oh, or did your wolf know? Did this bond pull us together just so this curse could be fulfilled? Is that all I am to you? The key to settling a supernatural debt? You are my mate, he roars, the sound echoing through the vast chamber, sending a cascade of dust from the highest shelves. The raw power in his voice makes the very candles flicker. He crosses the space between us in 2 long strides, grabbing my arms again, forcing me to face him. His silver eyes are blazing, not with the cold fury of the alpha, but with a desperate, wounded fire. "Do you think I wanted this?" He snarls, his face inches from mine. "To find my other half in the daughter of my enemy? To have my pack call for her blood? To learn that our union might be nothing but a cursed path to her slaughter? I have carried the weight of this crown alone for 10 years. I have slept with a sword by my hand and betrayal in my court." The mate bond was supposed to be a gift from the goddess, the one solace in a lifetime of duty. And it has brought me this. You. A walking prophecy that threatens to tear my kingdom and my very soul apart. His words are a torrent of pain and fury. The confession of a man pushed to his absolute limit. He is not a king in this moment, but a wolf caught in a trap, and I am the bait. The raw vulnerability in his eyes disarms my anger, leaving me shaken and breathless. We are both prisoners of this prophecy, shackled together by a fate we never chose. My own anger dissolves, replaced by a cold, hollowing dread. I sag against his hold, the fight draining out of me. "So what do we do?" I whisper, the question a plea. "How do we fight this?" He holds me for a moment longer, his breathing harsh in the silence. Then he seems to pull himself back together, the king reclaiming his throne from the man. He releases me and turns back to the book, his shoulders squared with renewed resolve. "The prophecy has 2 parts, he says, his voice regaining its command. "The sacrifice of the star-marked daughter, and the roll of the alpha with silver blood." He runs his finger along the last line of the script. "It says her blood will settle the old despair and mend a forgotten scar. It speaks of an ending, a mending, not just a payment." He looks up, his eyes sharp and analytical. "Curses are stories, and all stories have loopholes." He begins to pace before the table, a predator searching for a weakness in the cage. Lycoris and her followers believe the story ends with your death. They see only the blood payment. But the text is specific. The debt is cleansed when you are willingly claimed and marked. Willingly, that is the first key. His gaze finds mine. "They cannot drag you to the altar. The magic of the pact requires your consent, your will." "My will to be sacrificed?" I ask, the absurdity of it a bitter taste in my mouth. "Why would I ever agree to that?" "You wouldn't," he says. "Which means Lycoris will use the next 2 days to break you, to convince you that your death is necessary, that it is your destiny. She will use fear, guilt, the threat to my pack, to your father's pack. She will try to make you believe that your sacrifice is the only path to peace." He is right. The pieces are falling into place. The whispers in the hall, the overt threat from Lycoris, the poisoned wine, the assassin, they were all designed to isolate me, to terrify me, to make me feel helpless, to drive me towards my ordained role as the victim. "And the second key?" I ask, a sliver of hope, fragile as spun glass, beginning to form within me. Sevron stops pacing and looks at the book, then at me, a dangerous, calculating light entering his eyes. "The marking, the prophecy calls for the bond to be sealed. It is the final act that makes you vulnerable to the sacrificial rite." He pauses, his jaw tightening. "We will give them what they want. We will announce the ceremony will proceed, as planned. We will make them believe we are walking blindly into their trap." My heart plummets. "You want to go through with it? The public ceremony? You want to mark me, knowing it will make me a target for sacrifice?" "I want them to think I am marking you," he corrects, his voice dropping low, conspiratorial. "The ceremony will be public. The consummation will be real. The bond between us must be forged. Its power is the only thing that can fight this. But the final part, the bite that seals the mark and ties your life force to the prophecy, that will be a deception." He picks up a small, wicked-looking knife from the table, one of the many he used to pin maps to his walls. There is old magic, blood glamour, a false mark can be created, one that will fool their eyes and their senses, but will not hold the true power of an alpha's claim. It will satisfy the public requirement, but it will not bind you to the altar. They will know, I protest. Like Horus, the elders, they will sense the deception. Not if the bond between us is strong enough to project the illusion, he insists, his eyes burning with intensity. The power of a true mate bond can shield itself, can cast shadows and create lies. It will be a gamble, the greatest of my life. He steps toward me, holding my gaze. But it will only work if you trust me. Absolutely, you must stand with me before the entire pack and act the part of the willing bride. You must believe in the illusion so completely that they believe it too. Trust him, the man who is my captor, my enemy, my mate, the man whose very existence is tied to my potential destruction. He is asking for everything. He is asking me to place my pull in his hands. I look into his silver eyes and see no deception, only a desperate, ferocious will to defy the fate that has been written for us. I see a king willing to wager his entire kingdom on a single desperate deception to save me. My wolf, which has been silent and cowering, stirs within me. It recognizes the truth in his gaze. It recognizes its mate's resolve. It trusts him. And in that moment, I realize my human heart does too. The fear has not vanished, but for the first time, it is outweighed by a fierce, burning desire to fight, to live, to stand beside this wolf king and spit in the eye of destiny. All right, I say, my voice clear and steady. The glowing on my shoulder seems to pulse in response, a silent acknowledgement of my choice. I trust you. A flicker of profound relief crosses his face, so raw and unguarded it makes my breath catch. It is the look of a man who has been carrying the world on his shoulders and has just found someone willing to share the load. Good, he says, his voice rough with emotion. He turns and begins gathering specific scrolls from the shelves, his movements precise and urgent. Then we have much to do, and less than 2 days to do it. We need to understand the glamour, the wording of the ancient rites, and the location of this altar of the moonstone. He unrolls a scroll on the table, its surface covered in cryptic symbols. The prophecy says the debt will mend a forgotten scar. That is our true objective, not just to save you, but to end this curse forever, to find the scar and heal it. We spend the next hours lost in the ancient texts, working together by the flickering candlelight. A strange intimacy grows between us in the dusty silence of the archives. We are no longer king and hostage, but scholars and co-conspirators, our heads bent close over the brittle parchment. He translates the archaic runes, and I piece together the fragmented history, my knowledge of my own family's lore providing context he lacks. We are a team. The thought is as startling as it is welcome. As the first hints of dawn begin to filter through the high, grimy windows of the archives, we find it, a faded map tucked into the back of the Book of Debts. It shows the layout of the castle keep as it was centuries ago, and there, deep in the foundations, in a chamber long since sealed and forgotten, is a room marked with the symbol of the crescent moon, the altar chamber. But it is what is drawn beside it that makes my blood run cold. It is a crude sketch of the altar itself, and behind it, a carving on the wall. It is a family tree. At the top are 2 names, Varys and Kalor, an ancient Alpha Varys and an Alpha Kalor's daughter joined in a union. Below them, a line is fractured, split in 2, as if a great rift had torn the family apart. The forgotten scar wasn't a battle or a wound. It was a broken family. Our families were not always rivals. Once, long ago, we were one. My God, Severin breathes, his fingers tracing the faded line. The feud, it wasn't over territory. This is the source of it. A schism that broke our houses apart. The prophecy, I whisper, understanding dawning like a cold, terrible sunrise. It isn't about sacrificing me to pay a debt. It's about reuniting our bloodlines to heal a wound. The mending of the scar. Severin looks at me, his silver eyes dark with the weight of this revelation. They have twisted it, Lycris and her ancestors. They turned a prophecy of healing into a mandate for murder. They have been feeding the hatred between our packs for centuries, all to maintain their own power, to keep our houses divided. The full scope of the conspiracy is staggering. Generations of bloodshed, all based on a lie. Lycoris isn't just a fanatic. She is the guardian of a deception that has defined our entire history. So the willing union of our two lines, sealed by a true mate bond, I trail off looking at him, is the very thing that will end the curse and her power forever, he finishes, his voice grim. And now she knows we are here, mated, the final pieces of her puzzle. She will not allow that to happen. She will ensure your blood is spilled on that altar, twisting the prophecy's end to her own design. He rolls up the map, his movements sharp and decisive. The time for study is over. The ceremony will proceed, but we will not be the actors in her play. We will be writing our own ending. He looks at me, and for the first time, I see a king ready to go to war. Not for territory or for power, but for the future, for me, for us. The blood glamour is our only chance to survive the night of the ceremony, he says, his eyes holding mine. But to end this forever, to heal the scar, the prophecy requires a true marking, a willing union. He does not have to say the rest. We both know what it means. To break the curse, the false mark must eventually become a real one. The deception can only protect me for so long. To truly win, I will have to willingly, completely bind myself to him, my life, my soul, my future. The choice was still mine. But now it was no longer a choice between life and death. It was the choice between survival and victory. The first snow of winter is falling, each flake a silent silver ghost drifting down from a sky the color of slate. I stand on the high balcony of Sevron's Our Chambers, a thick fur cloak wrapped around my shoulders, and watch the world turn white. The air is so cold it bites at my lungs, a clean, sharp pain that feels like coming home. The scent of pine from the forest below is heavy and sweet, a constant perfume that has become the scent of my life. My love, my kingdom. A pair of strong arms wrap around me from behind, pulling me back against a chest as solid and unyielding as the mountains themselves. Severin rests his chin on my shoulder, his warmth a living shield against the encroaching cold. His own scent, that familiar and beloved mix of pine and winter, envelops me. You'll catch a chill, my love, he murmurs, his voice a low rumble against my ear. My Varys blood is thicker than that, I reply, leaning back into his embrace, my hand covering his where it rests on my stomach. Besides, the little one is keeping me warm. A soft, wondering sound escapes him, and his hand spreads protectively over the gentle, firm swell of my belly. Even after all these months, the reality of it, of the new life we created together, still fills him with a quiet, reverent awe that melts my heart every time. Is he kicking? He asks. He is sleeping, I laugh softly, dreaming of chasing rabbits, I imagine, or perhaps plotting how to usurp his father's throne. Sevron chuckles, a deep, warm sound that vibrates through me. He is welcome to try. A Kaelor wolf is born to challenge. He presses a kiss to my temple, his lips warm against my cold skin. Are you happy, Talindra? The question is simple, but it holds the weight of everything we have been through. The terror of that night in the altar chamber, the desperate gamble of the false marking ceremony, the shock and fury on Lycoris's face when her ritual failed and her long-held deception was exposed before the entire pack. I remember the battle that followed, not a war between packs, but a swift and brutal cleansing within our own. Sevron, with the truth of the prophecy on his side, was magnificent. He was the Alpha King in his truest form, and the pack, finally seeing the depth of the betrayal that had poisoned them for centuries, rallied to him, to us. Lycoris and her inner circle of fanatics were exiled, stripped of their rank, and cast out into the wastelands, a fate worse than death for a pack wolf. The scars of her lies, the deep-seated rivalry between Kaelor and Varys wolves, did not vanish overnight. But the healing had begun. My father, when he learned the full truth of the curse that had haunted his line, was humbled. He came not as a rival alpha, but as a father, and for the first time, I saw the man behind the leader. He and Severin now lead their packs in a true and growing alliance, mending the ancient scar one treaty, one shared hunt, one tentative friendship at a time. And us, our bond, forged in fear and prophecy, had deepened into a love as wild and enduring as the northern forests. The false mark had been our shield. But a few weeks after the battle, on a quiet night under the light of a normal silver moon, he had asked for my consent to make it real. It was not a king's demand or a prophecy's requirement, but the simple, heartfelt plea of a man asking for his mate's soul. My yes was the easiest word I had ever spoken. The bite that followed was not a claim of ownership, but a vow of equals, a perfect and final sealing of our two halves into one whole. The last vestiges of the old curse had vanished in that moment. A whisper of old pain dissolving into the light of a new future. I turned in his arms to face him, my hands coming up to cup his strong, bearded jaw. The silver of his eyes, which once held only the cold weight of command, now shine with a warmth that is reserved only for me. I see my reflection there, no longer a hostage or a sacrifice, but a Luna, a queen, a beloved wife. Yes, Severin, I say, my voice thick with an emotion so deep it has no name. More than I ever thought possible. I rise on my toes and kiss him, a slow, lingering kiss, filled with the quiet certainty of a lifetime of kisses to come. It is a kiss that speaks of battles won, of ghosts laid to rest, of a love that rewrote destiny. He pulls back, his forehead resting against mine. Good, he murmurs, because my father's ghost has been lecturing me in my dreams. He says a happy Luna means a strong pack, and I have no intention of disappointing him. I laugh, the sound bright in the cold air. And what does my mother's spirit say? His expression softens. She says to tell you she is proud of the queen you have become, and that she is waiting patiently to meet her grandson. A tear I don't bother to hide slips down my cheek. He gently wipes it away with his thumb. In the distance, from the courtyard below, the sound of a horn blows, sharp and clear. It is the call for the evening meal, the call for the pack to gather. They are waiting for their Alpha and their Luna, he says, a hint of pride in his voice. Then we shouldn't keep them waiting, I reply, taking his hand. We walk back inside from the wild cold into the warmth of our home. The fire roars in the hearth. The room is filled with the scent of old leather, wood smoke, and love. It is no longer his den. It is our sanctuary. As we walk hand in hand towards the great hall to join our people, I know with a certainty that reaches down to the marrow of my bones that this is where I was always meant to be. I was not a bargain sent to keep the peace. I was the key sent to create a new one. My life had not been a debt to be paid, but a promise to be fulfilled. And here, in the heart of the North, beside my Alpha King, with our son dreaming of the world he will one day inherit, I am finally, completely home. The kingdom we rule is not one of fear and ancient rivalries, but a new kingdom, built on truth and bound by love, a kingdom of silver and pine,